Today we're going to be talking about student learning objectives. We're going to be talking about what exactly that is and then how that connects to T-tests. So we know that the goal of T-test is to be a formative system. It's something that gives feedback and builds in support between the administrator and the teacher. But it is a holistic support system for teachers. It's comprised of 3 measures of teacher effectiveness. So those 3 measures include classroom observation, the goal setting conference piece, and then a professional development plan, and then the student growth component. And so what we're going to be focusing on today is the student growth component of T-test, which our district has chosen to use the student learning objective piece, or what is also known as SLOs. So student learning objectives, or SLOs, they're student growth goals. They're things that are set by the teacher that help them to plan instruction, and then it drives the student learning throughout the year. These goals that are set through SLOs help to define what success looks like for their students, and then plan backwards to ensure that instruction is intentional and purposeful and that students are meeting these goals. So as we get into this, it's important to be clear about what SLOs are not and what they are. So let's talk about a couple of points that SLOs are not. One thing that will be a shift is they are not mathematically precise. So SLOs are not designed to separate a 79 from an 80 in the grade book. They're not there to suggest that those indicate a different level of learning. It's really designed to be subjective, but it is evidence-based, and so it allows student growth and teacher growth as well. SLOs are not standardized across the campus or a district, meaning that all students are not expected to reach a predetermined level all at the same time, all in the same way, across one campus or across a district. It's not necessarily focused on traditional testing. So traditional tests can be used as part of the evidence, but also other measures can be included, such as labs, essays, presentations, or projects. SLOs are also not a second grade book, thank goodness. You already have a grade book, and so this is not another component that is similar to that. It's just to leave room for evidence-based in a different kind of way than a grade book looks at student grades. And SLOs are just not something to be checked off. It's not a compliance piece. It is designed to look at instructional practices, and based on the pilot study that was done, we know that once teachers engage in this process, that it does become meaningful and it adds value to their practice as they continue to assess student growth and student learning, and then analyze what instructional practices were able to accomplish that. So now let's look at what are SLOs. So SLOs are instructionally valuable. What they allow to do is to focus on a foundational skill that is designed by the teacher, and then look at student growth and instruction designed around that, looking at reflection, teacher effectiveness, what's working, what's not working, and then making adjustments along the way. SLOs look at foundational skills, and we're going to talk a little bit about this in just a moment, but it is important when you're thinking about a foundational skill to really narrow that down and think about an essential standard or a power standard that students must know not only in your class, but also for future learning and across content areas. This might help you to think about a process standard, maybe, but it is something that is going to allow a lot of value added for the student for the short term and the long term. SLOs are evidence-based. One thing that we want to look at with that is we're looking at where students are and then where they should be, and designing instruction around that, and then looking at evidence from the student to determine where they are with that. It's not designed to be a magical growth number or a number for teacher effectiveness. That's not how it's designed, but it is evidence-based, based on what was done instructionally, and then demonstrated on what the student is able to do. It is equitable, which is a wonderful thing, because it does provide for differentiation amongst students, and so it allows teachers to meet the various needs of the students in their classroom through instructional practices. Looking at it being transparent, one thing is we want the process to be authentic. We want it to be clear and honest about what's working, what's not, what did you change, and how did that impact students. Looking at it's manageable. It's looking at one focus standard and really honing in on that, and then allowing your practice to evolve around that. It's adaptable just because it does require reflection and adjustments along the way, as well as flexibility. And then it's a skill that you want to really think about that is covered throughout the year or the semester, depending on what class you're teaching. So now let's talk about some of the keys to successful PLOs. It does focus on a growth mindset. It's something that as teachers looking at their professional practice to focus on, as well as where students are in learning the foundational skill. Just like in T-Test, the ratings are the least important part. The process is what is important here, and the learning throughout for the teacher and the student. Always looking to constantly improve practice and fine-tuning the way that things are done so that student learning can be maximized. The SLO process is called student growth. It's part of the student growth measure in T-Test, but it's really about the teacher growth and just about learning and reflecting and making adjustments, all focused on student success, especially on that essential foundational skill that's going to affect students in a big way for their future and currently in your classroom. And just like we talked about, it is authentic, it is honest, it's something to collaborate with your team in your department or your grade level. Also through the PLC process, there should be lots of dialogue about this, and then with your appraiser as well, something that is ongoing. This is not something that you would do at the beginning of the year and then get it back out in the middle and the end. It should be something that is done in an ongoing way all throughout the year, and that there's discussions, that it is a living process and a living document.